Jen, and I'm back with another video in my series for using my stash kit. This is a series where I mix older products with new products and just try to use up a kit in my stash. I'll link below to the playlist where you can see all the videos in this series, including the one where I put the kit together. But today I am starting with some autumn photos, and these are a series of photos of my daughter throwing some leaves at me. So she was outside raking leaves. I decided to grab my camera because, you know, the fall photo ops, and she came at me with the leaves, and I snapped this series of photos. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen I put a little video with this series of photos on there. And so I printed these off in a way that I could cut them in kind of like a photo strip and use two of them. And what I'm wanting to do is create a wreath around it. Now I know that you've probably seen a lot of people doing wreaths. I had a paper in the kit that I created that has leaves on it, and I want to use some of those. And I also got a new leaf die. I don't know if I'll use this or not, but I thought I could maybe mix this in. And let me just show you what it looks like. It looks like this when it's cut out, which I think is pretty cool. It's a really geometric kind of shape, but I thought I could use some of the papers that I had collected. And then I also thought it might be nice to kind of freshen it up to use some of this paper as well, and fussy cut a bit of this to stick in with the wreath. So maybe cutting out some of these leaves. And so I kind of know already to start that this is going to be a fussy cutting, kind of maybe labor intensive process, but those kinds of layouts are very fun for me to create. So that's where I'm starting today, and I will go ahead and put you on fast forward so you can watch the process. I'm using this sassafras paper from Sunshine Broadcast. This is from 2011. So this is one of the papers that I've loved for so long and just haven't gotten a chance to use, and I think it will be absolutely perfect for the background for these photos. You can see how well it matches there, and so that is where I am basing everything, and I'm going to try to keep it kind of light and bright because I'm using this kind of deeply saturated, colorful background. So I'll go ahead and put you on fast forward now. So I'm going to start by just trimming down my photos into those little strips, and I'm just making an even border around the outside, and I'm making it the same width as the border that's between the photos. And then I will trim off the branding strip from my patterned paper there. And what I'm going to do now is kind of figure out how I want this wreath to go. So I'm cutting out a bunch of leaves out of this paper, and I will admit that this took a really long time. You could do this same technique a lot quicker by not fussy cutting, by just cutting some leaves on your silhouette or something like that. But I fussy cut, and it took me like an hour to get all the pieces that I wanted. Here you can see that I've done some of the leaves from the Pebbles paper, and now I'm cutting out some of the pieces and the birds from this beautiful Maggie Holmes paper. And now what I'm going to do is use the back of that Maggie Holmes Gather paper that had the birds on it, and it has kind of a leathery texture. It's a brown color, a brownie orange color. And I felt like I really needed to bring that orange color in because the leaves and the tree is so orange. And so I'm using my die. This is a Maya Road die, and it's a geometric leaf. I'll link to that below. I'll link to all the products that I use in the video description below, but I am cutting out a bunch of those leaves, and I'm going to be placing them around. So a couple things I want to just mention about this layout. One, yes, it was a labor of love. You can make it faster in a different way, like I already said. Two, circles are hard. And I haven't made a wreath layout like this in a long time, and I just struggled finding the balance, and it ended up looking kind of squarish, but I really do love the details of it, and I think it turned out pretty anyway. But it was definitely a labor of love, but it was a fun thing for me to make. So I don't really care how long a layout takes me if I'm having fun with it, because that is part of the joy of scrapbooking for me, is putting the layout together, in addition to telling a story. So what I'm doing with that die is I'm dropping it. If you hold up a die, kind of an intricate die, if you hold it up and drop it, a lot of times if the paper is stuck in the die, it will just fall out when you drop it like that. So I'm just die cutting a bunch of these on my little diamond press machine there that is available on HSN in the United States. And it's just a tiny little die cutting machine. You use those little folders. You can see me putting the die in and just run it through. It's really simple, and I like it for small dies. And I'm just cutting out a bunch of these leaves. I'm not sure how many I'll want yet, but I'm trying to get a good balance of them around the wreath. And I want some of them to poke out, and I think that's the reason why I struggled with the balance, is because I had them the leaves poking out in 4 corners kind of, and rather than 3, and it just made it look a little more squarish. But like I said, I'm fine with the way it ends up. So at this point, I'm wondering if it might be better, and for my photos to kind of pop off it, for me to put a white circle underneath the area of the photos and build the wreath around it and still have that sunset background, but just have a white circle on top of it. And so I cut a messy circle out of some cardstock, and I'm kind of laying the leaves out now to see if I like that look. And so I will place them all around this circle, and then decide that part of the what I loved about the way that the wreath looked is seeing through to the background. So I think that this layout would have worked really well on just a plain white background, but like I said, I have been hoarding this paper since 2011. I thought it was time to use it. It was gorgeous. It worked well with my color scheme, and so I just decided to go ahead with it. So there I decided not to use the white behind the photos, and now I am just going to work on kind of arranging the leaves and seeing if I have enough and if I need any more filler. And I do end up cutting a few more, but not too many. It doesn't need to be super dense, but I think it looks nice when it is. So just playing around with those and getting them all in place, and I'm kind of tucking in some of those geometric leaves as I go, trying to decide. I'm clustering some of them together, putting one off here and there, and all of that. So I'm going to play around now with the birds in the leaves, and I really love the birds. I purposely cut out 2 birds, one to put at the top and one for the bottom, and they're facing in different directions. And I like the idea of them both facing in toward the middle of the wreath and towards the photos. So here I just kind of traced that circle with a pencil, and now I'm just going to start sticking the leaves down because you saw me move them on the page and off the page several times. What was the point of that? There was no, like, I'm wasting my time, and I realized that. So I decided to just start sticking stuff down, and I'm just putting a little bit of adhesive on each leaf, and if I need to move it, I can. So I am just putting a little bit of adhesive and just sticking each leaf down, like I said. Here I've skipped ahead a little bit. I'm cutting out a couple more leaves just to fill in some blanks there. And you can see there's one leaf on the right that's poking out, and the rest are kind of centered in a circle. I just noticed that now. I don't know if I end up changing that. It doesn't matter because I add so much other stuff in. There I did kind of change it. I can see that the bottom right isn't, like, looking back at the video, it's easy for me to see from this bird's eye view how wonky my circle really was, but that's okay. So there you can see where I'm putting the birds, and I'm tucking in. I decided that with the birds there would be some clusters there, and that I would put some of those geometric leaves in each cluster with the birds. And so I'm putting 2 in with the top bird and 2 in with the bottom one. And I am going to place some of the other geometric shapes around as well. And I thought it might be nice to have a 3rd leaf up in that top cluster, so I added one. And now I've decided that wherever there's going to be a geometric leaf, that's where I'll put some more of the clusters of these little leaf sprigs that I've fussy cut from that paper. And I'm just kind of tucking them in and kind of trying to balance color as well as some of the different shapes. So there are some of those little leaf sprigs that have, they look a little black twig with a with a little black ball on the end. There's a couple of those, and so I'm making sure those are spaced out, and I'm making sure that the colors are spaced out, and there's some green leaves, and there's some like little tiny green leaves, and so I'm just making sure that everything is kind of balanced that way, and finding places where I can just kind of nestle those into the white leaves. And it's just kind of a matter of playing around with it until I find a look that I like. And here you can see it kind of is looking squarish right now. There's not anything poking out up at the top, and there is on the other sides. I don't know. It's just what it is. I'm talking about it being square too much, but it's kind of bothered me. So just tucking in those leaves up top. And now you can see that I have kind of decided where things are going, and I've placed all of those in there. Now I'm cutting a couple more of those geometric leaves because I felt like there were some spaces down at the bottom that needed some more leaves, and so I'm going to tuck in a couple more. And I end up liking that. Now, I really like where in some cases I can layer things inside of the white circle of leaves so that it doesn't look, so the white circle is kind of the base of my wreath, and then everything else is tucked into it. But I want things to tuck into the center as well as to the outside of the wreath, if that makes any sense. So I'm using some Scotch Quick Dry adhesive in a fine line bottle, and that bottle comes empty. You just put whatever glue you like in it. And I, of course, will link to that below. And I am just putting a little bit of adhesive on the edge of the stems and tucking them in. And I am liking the way that this is looking. And these, it's like, I don't know if you've ever built a flower arrangement, but you kind of start with your base flowers, and then you can tuck in all sorts of little things to kind of filler pieces. And that's what all of this stuff is. It's filler. It's helping me fill out the wreath and just make it look nice and more full. And so after you get your base on, then you can just kind of tuck in little bits and pieces here and there. So I'm just about done. I'm just kind of still thinking that the bottom looks a little bit bare, and I go to my sticker sheet to see if there's anything from there that I want to add into my wreath. And there's another little bird, which I thought was kind of nice because I like things in threes. And so I just put it next to the other bird on the bottom. And then for kind of a brighter pop of color, I'm using some of the stickers. The stickers, because they're a different texture, they have a more saturated color. And so I tucked a yellow leaf at the top and then a yellow and pink one at the bottom right. And then the bird the bottom left has the pink and yellow flower, and then the bird on the bottom right. And I think that works. And so I was looking through some of my die cuts to see if there was anything that worked. I keep trying to use that banner from my chipboard sheet, and it's not working. But there's a little flag that says yay or yeah, I can't remember, and then a little gold bow. And I decided to put both of those in here. And I really like the way those add to the layout. So now I'm thinking I need to figure out what my title's going to be before I can really do much else. And so I'm going to use these little, well, I kind of went back and forth on the title too. So I thought maybe that I would have the big word leaves in this green color, which looking back on it, I really like it. It's bold and it stands out, but I don't end up using those chipboard alphabets. I just went for a more subtle look. And so I thought about the wood grain because it definitely would have worked. Wood grain goes great with fall photos. But in the end, I decided to go with those basic gray kind of cream colored alphabet stickers. And my final title ends up being, she threw them right in my face. And I do it all. Right now I'm still trying to decide if I want to use some of the wood grain and some of the cream, or just all of the cream or all of the wood grain. So I'm kind of being indecisive. I like using wax paper to put my letter stickers on for my titling so that I can be indecisive. It works really well for me. And so that's what I'm doing here, is just putting those on wax paper. I'm going to skip ahead so you don't have to watch me struggle with that anymore. And here I have them
all stuck on the wax paper. Now I'm going to cut them apart so I can see if I want to arrange them in a line, if I want to stack them, how exactly I want to do that. There's this little arrow from Pink Paisley's Autumn Lane collection. Cedar Lane collection is last year's autumn collection for Pink Paisley that I want to use. And I'm thinking it might be fun to point to the word my face, which I did in capital letters for it to stand out. And then I thought pointing to it would also help it stand out. So I'm going to get my photo stuck down, and you can see I'm kind of tucking it into the wreath. I think that's important to make everything look kind of cohesive. And at this point in time, I'm thinking I'm going to I'm going to put the word my face right above the photos with the arrow pointing to it, and then the rest of the words in a line across the top. And so that's what I'm kind of doing right now. So I'm using my scissors to grab the little dots for the eyes, and then I also have an exclamation mark. And I skipped ahead so you didn't have to watch me put that on, but I decided to stack the words to the right. I just like the way that was looking. And so now I'm going to have a conundrum where I have a space to fill to the left of the title, but that's okay. I did adhere that arrow down, and now I'm going to do kind of a little subtitle. So I'm using my black Muji pen to write "and then" in kind of a loose long script, and then I'm going to write my journaling below the photos in a loose long script as well. So now it says, "and then she threw them right in my face." And then at the bottom it says, "and then she laughed so hard, and then I laughed so hard. How could you not? Silly girl." So it's just really simple journaling. I think the photos, when you use a lot of photos like this in a sequence, it really helps to tell the story. Obviously, she had them in her hand and she came and threw them in my face. So now I'm going to play around with how to fix that little space to the left of my title. And my title looks very subtle. It's very tone on tone. And I like that because I wanted to keep this light and airy, but I am struggling to figure out what to put next to it. So I thought maybe I need to just add in some more foliage here. And so I'm cutting some more. And I'm just fussy cutting that out and trying to see if this is going to work here. It doesn't quite give the effect that I want, but since I fussy cut it out, I'm going to find other places to stick it in. And I decide to put a little bit more at the top, just to the right of the top bird, because I felt like it needed a little something extra there. And then I will end up putting a little bit more down at the bottom as well, and you'll see that as we go along here. So I'm still looking for something that I can add in to my layout to fill that space, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is the leaf I need. So I'm just trying to think of what I can do exactly to fill that up. And I love using my close to my heart micro tip scissors for this. It makes easy work of it, even though it did, it is fussy, and they call it fussy cutting for a reason, and it took a while. See, that was just too big, and it was too similar to the leaf next to it. I don't know. I just wasn't loving it. And so I end up tucking it in at the bottom. And you'll see that here in a second. Not before I try it a few other places, though. But I decided that the bottom is where it really needed it. So I did tuck a little piece up at the top, but it doesn't make a huge difference. In the end, well, you'll see in the end what I do, but I'm going to do a date stamp and some sequins there. And that, I think, fills the space enough. So I thought I was going to go ahead and do some gold color shine, but before I do that, I decided I wanted to use these gold sequins. And these gold sequins are from Spiegel Mom Scraps. I don't think she sells this cinnamon and sugar assortment anymore, but she has lots of beautiful sequin assortments, and it's spiegelmomscraps.com that you can check it out. And I really like these gold ones. They're a little bit iridescent, so when I put them on the blue, they kind of pick up a little bit of that blue tone, and when you turn the page in the light, there is a little bit of a blue tone that comes with the iridescence of those gold sequins, and I think it works really well here because of the colors that I have going on my layout. So I'm just gluing those down with some multimedia adhesive from Thermoweb, which is freaking awesome for sequins because it's very, very it's heavy duty. Those sequins don't come off once that glue dries. I really love that glue. I found that with other glues it wasn't sticking as well, but this one works really well. So I'm just putting a dot of adhesive around and then placing my sequin on top of it. And I just kind of threw them everywhere. And you can see what I mean about my wreath being a little bit squarish, but I think it's still pretty in the end, so it's okay. And after I do that, I am going to sprinkle some Heidi Swap Gold Color Shine, and I'm going to do it all around the entire wreath. Now I'm cutting out one more tiny little sprig here to place at the top. I felt like it needed it. But now here comes the color shine, I believe. Oh, I'm going to do my roller date stamp. I'm stamping in Whisper ink because I really wanted a tonal look. I didn't want it to stand out too much, and this light gray worked really well for that. So I just looking up on my phone what the date was, and I stamped it there. And now I will sprinkle my Heidi Swap Gold Color Shine. And that is going to finish everything off for this layout. There are lots of still photos coming up, and you can check it out even more at my blog at CraftyJenSchow.com. I'll have all links to available products in the video description below, as well as over on my blog. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I will have another video using my stash kit again next week.